when they told you that the dream was over. But here's the truth, your dream is just beginning.
The best of the best is coming together.
The USFL and the XFL are merging to create the United Football League, the UFL.
The best spring football league in the world.
What a catch!
It's one of the most insane catches I've ever seen.
One man to beat!
He's gone!
96 yards to the house! No one's gonna get him!
These players are going to play hard-nosed, intense football.
Into the end zone. No! No way!
Let's ball out, baby!
Bonkers in Birmingham. The Panthers and Stallions had us on the edge of our seats.
Yeah.
It was chippiness, turnovers, and QB drama. This was a game you don't want to miss. But that's not all, Skubie.
I mean, win and you're back in the Battle Dome. Can the Battlehawks get past the Brahmas and play the UFL Championship on their home turf?
And lace up your boots, boys and girls. The very first UFL Championship is set. Which teams have the edge next week in St. Louis? We're breaking it all down. Coming up next on UFL Today. Welcome in to UFL Today tonight. My name is Daniel Dopp, here with Skubie Mageza, and it is past Joey G's bedtime.
Way past my bedtime. I should be, dude, out right now. Out, but I'm with you guys. I'm not complaining about that.
This is amazing. A super late one for us. Usually the show comes a little bit earlier, but we had two really great games this week. Skubie, when you look at this, only 2 games left. It's week 11. Can you believe we're almost at the end of the season?
It's been such a fun year, so I want to get that off first. And it's been a great weekend. I mean, both of these games with the way that they ended, and that one right there, the Brahmas and Battlehawks, I got a lot of thoughts as to how Anthony Beck kind of handled the end of that game. We got some special guests coming in for the show that are going to talk about it. A lot to get on today.
Yes, a lot to talk about. And Joe, one of the things we always get to, chat. Got to show some love to the people in chat.
We went through every emotion watching those games this weekend. We finally have 2 finalists. We want to know who you guys think is going to hoist the very first UFL Championship trophy next week.
Boy. Head on over to chat. Cannot wait to see what you guys think. We're going to have some thoughts a little bit later on in the show. But for right now, let's get to some highlights. That's what we're here for. Go back and look at the week that was, starting with the Panthers and Stallions. USFL Conference Championship game. Danny Etling and the Panthers taking on Adrian Martinez and the Stallions. Pretty shot here, the USFL Championship trophy. Defensive Player of the Year, Breland Speaks, spoke pregame about his mindset coming into this one.
You're locked in. You told me Birmingham has proven they're the team to beat. A spot in the UFL Championship on the line. What's priority number 1 for you today?
Stop the offense. Stop Adrian. That's the only thing we're worried about.
How do you show what you're made of against him today?
Don't worry about it. You'll see it on the field.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, first quarter, Danny Etling, COC Mariner, showing them what they do on the field, Skubie, as they score touchdowns.
He's out of here, right in the middle, nobody there. That was like cone work.
35-yard touchdown, 2-point conversion, no good, 6-0 ball game. Hey, remember last week? Jake Bates missed a 53-yard game-winning field goal attempt in this very same stadium, Skubie.
Yes, I do.
But this is a new week. New week for Jake Bates.
New week, new me.
Visualizing the target. Snap, hold, kick.
Right down
Money.
the middle.
53 yards. Panthers extend the lead to 9-0. Things getting chippy here in Birmingham. Look at that headbutt. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. What is this, NFL Blitz the league?
Oh, that was a great game.
I wonder what Coach Phillips would say if he was on the sidelines for this one. All right, take it to the second. Skubie, it's a tight end league, brother.
Tight ends. You can always trust on them, always rely on them, especially in the UFL.
Oh, Jay Sternberger getting them all the way down to the goal line. Now, 3rd and goal from the 5. Adrian Martinez looking for his man Jordan Thomas. And Panthers defense says no touchdowns for you.
I mean, if he got that off just a little bit earlier, he could have caught it, but great defense nonetheless.
Stallions settle for a field goal. Under 7 to go in the second. Martinez looking downfield, gets clobbered by Noah Dopp.
Blindside hit. Nothing the QB can do about that.
Watch this again. Look at that. He's completely unblocked along the backside there.
Hey, look at me! Look at me! What I'm talking? Welcome back, boy! Come on! Welcome back, boy!
Panthers defense is pumped. Under 4 to play. Stallions down by 15. We talked about the tight ends, right, Skubie?
Yes, sir.
Why do we keep leaving them open? Martinez.
There we go.
Jordan Thomas down the seam.
It's been a great year for Thomas. Last year was with the Guardians. Really had some great moments then. Been better this season.
Stallions now only down by 9. To the third quarter we go. Buckle up now. Martinez looking downfield. Wide receiver kind of loses track of the ball.
I mean,
Adonis Alexander with the INT. Martinez ends up getting an earful from his coach on the sideline.
I'm just asking you to do what I'm asking you to do, and we're playing our own offense right now. I don't know what you're looking at. I don't know what you're seeing. I don't know what you're doing. I need to reel you back in to play in our offense because it works. It's worked for 3 years. It's worked for 30 years. It works. It's tried. It's tested.
Panthers looking to punt here. You know why we show you punts. It's not usually punts. It's a fake. Safety kind of cool says, I don't just intercept passes, I throw passes.
Hey, it's a wobbler too, but it got there, did the job done.
Coach having some tough words with the special teams coach on the sideline in this one as well. If you watch this, he's having words with everyone, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, he's fired up. Great coaches do what great coaches do.
Panthers don't seem to mind, though. They're all smiles if you check out number 86 here. Look at that. Look at those pearly whites. Next drive, Danny Etling back to pass. And DeAndre Tillman had other ideas. Strip sack recovered by Damon Lloyd. Watch this one again.
I mean, here comes the Stallions defense, just making plays when it matters the most.
Second turnover of the quarter. Under 3 minutes left in the third here. Danny Etling looking in the middle of the field and is instead picked by Daniel Isom.
He's out. Icing him.
Got a few blocks, guys. Watch it. He's getting in the end zone.
He used to be a running back in high school or something, because that was
Stallions tied at 18. Defense putting the offense on their back here in the third. We have not hit our quota on shirtless Stallions.
We need more? Yeah.
We still need a few more in this one.
I think so, too.
Honestly, there were 5 turnovers. The third quarter was
more
drunk,
shirtless people.
Skip Holtz decided to make a change at QB, replacing MVP frontrunner Adrian Martinez with Matt Corral.
Now, this is different.
And it certainly worked out. Gary Jennings, beautiful 43-yard gain. Stallions stampeding down the field, under 14 to play. Matt Corral finds Amari Cooper, who just walks in the end zone. Where was the defense?
I mean, it was almost like they stopped playing right there, but self-revive. I see that celebration right there.
That's
little
it.
Call of Duty action. I like it. I like it.
All right, Jake Bates back up with under 10. Again, we're going to visualize.
Yep.
Snap. Hold. Kick. Block. Ooh. That's not part of the play. Stallions blocked the field goal. Watch the vertical. Number of these guys showing off those
3
legs.
offensive linemen on the field goal block team, but let's remember Jake Bates did slip on that kick.
Yeah.
Shout out our producer, Tyler.
Tough break for the Panthers, who are still down 6 and need a stop with under 5 to play. Corral finds Ricky Person Jr. He does the rest with his legs. Great acceleration around the corner. That's going to do it, folks. Birmingham Stallions come from behind, scoring 28 unanswered points to win the USFL Championship, 31-18 over the Michigan Panthers. Coaches shaking hands, players and fans celebrating. Stallions presented with the USFL Conference Championship trophy. Another unbelievable game here. Whew, just a beauty. I got to tell you, the UFL did not disappoint in season 1. You know who else doesn't disappoint? Who? Our man, Tom Luginbill. The guy who is the GOAT, the king of spring football. Tom, so stoked that you could join us here. Thank you for joining UFL Today tonight. Knowing it's a little bit later than normal, appreciate you making time for us. Here's my first question for you, Tom. We watched a situation in which a coach benched the front runner for MVP in the middle of a game to replace him with a backup quarterback. Talk to me about not only what Matt Corral did, but making that move.
So a couple of things. It kind of takes me back to the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season when Skip Holtz was trying to kind of find his way, right? He had started Matt Corral, then he was rotating them.
Yep.
And we actually had Birmingham on the road at Michigan in week 3. And the quarterbacks came to Skip Holtz and said, listen, just start one of us and play us, because coming in every other series, it's just hard to get in a rhythm. We don't like it. So Skip Holtz said, okay, here's what we're going to do then. We gave Matt Corral a start. He played. We played the second half with Adrian Martinez up on the road at Michigan, and Adrian Martinez had a great day that afternoon and then became the starter from that point forward. But I'll say this, guys. This started about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and if you listen to the language Skip Holtz shared with Adrian Martinez. You know, I need you to start seeing it. I need you to come back into our offense and start playing in our offense because it works. I had the loss on the road at San Antonio, and it started right around there. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the league catching up, if coaches are saying, you know, I think we can get a hold of this guy and force him into some bad decisions just because now they've got more tape on him. They've got more tape on the offense. But he just wasn't seeing it. And if you looked at yesterday's game, for his fair share of really nice plays, he was also very indecisive. The deep ball down the sideline on the go route was a poorly thrown ball. It wasn't a well-run route either. But I just think that Skip Holtz trusts both of those guys. And when it came down to it, he needed to get a spark. He needed to, number one, send a message to Adrian Martinez, and then he needed to spark his football team. And in doing so, he went with Matt Corral, who's got more arm talent, can drive the ball vertically, get the ball downfield, and he made decisive decisions. You know, you made the routine plays routinely, and now you go into this week, guys, and in my opinion, you dance with who brung you. You give Adrian Martinez an opportunity to prove that he can see it, that he can settle down, that he can bring himself back into the offense. And then, you know, you got a great option in Matt Corral if for some reason it's just not going well up in St. Louis.
Now, is this something that, you know, we can only see in spring football and not the NFL? Because, you know, in the NFL, you probably want to see your quarterback roll with your guy and try to keep him up as he works through these struggles. But obviously in spring football, the backups have just as much talent as the starters.
Yeah. Listen, I think that the way Skip Holtz has handled these two and how transparent and upfront he has been with them from the moment they arrived on campus. Oh, on campus, I guess you could say, in training camp in Arlington. College football getting to the best of me right now. He kind of just told them, here's the deal. You guys are going to battle it out. We're going to chart every throw, every poor decision, every correct decision, every incompletion, every turnover. We're going to gauge how the locker room responds to you guys. And then you guys will determine on the field what your play is. If you're playing well, you're going to continue to play. If you're not, we're going to give the other guy a shot. So I think because the guys know where they stand, they understand it and they get it. I'm sure if you talk to Adrian Martinez right now, he would tell you that, yeah, did I like it? No, I'm a competitor. Have I played great up until this point and gotten this team in this position? Yes, but it wasn't happening in that moment. And the head coach makes the head coaching decisions. So, yeah, you're not going to see a lot of this type of stuff in the National Football League, but I think it's something that Skip Holtz has managed masterfully. And listen, well, the only thing better than having a quarterback is having two, right?
Yeah,
I remember the 2001 XFL, our championship team in Los Angeles. We had Tommy Maddox, and we took Scott Milanovich with the first overall pick in the draft. We're not going to be left without a quarterback. And I think Skip Holtz kind of took a similar type of stance on it.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at this situation, that was a huge coaching move in a massively clutch moment for this team, for him to say, you know what? I'm the leader of this ship. I'm going to make this call. If we go down, that's on me. But I think my team needs this. That's one of the things that I think he did such a great job on. And one of the reasons why I feel like Birmingham has done so well this year. It's not just because of Adrian Martinez. Even though we talk about him as the obvious MVP frontrunner, Skip Holtz has been incredible as a coach. I just want to ask you about him in comparison to the rest of the UFL coaches and what you've seen from Skip Holtz being able to lead this team all the way to the championship.
So it's interesting. When we had them the first time, I believe it was either week 2 or 3, and I point blank just asked him, because I have a background in spring football as a coach, and I just said to him, I said, how much fun are you having? And he goes, Tommy, this is the best job I've ever had. Now think about that.
Love hearing that.
He goes, this is the best job I've ever had. He goes, the guys are hungry. They're a pleasure to coach. We're not dealing with the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness and books and tuition and our guys going to class. Are they getting – these guys are all invested. So he's treated them like professionals and he's treated them like men. And in turn, they've rewarded him with performance. And I'm sure you guys have heard it each and every week. And I've told our producers this. I said, guys, I don't care what he's saying. If he's having a conversation with a player, we listen to it. I lay out, Lowell lays out, because he is television gold for this league because of how he deals with his players and his tone, his demeanor. Really good with the quarterbacks. And I asked him that question. I said, who responds to being yelled and screamed at? Who needs to have your arm kind of put over him and say, hey, come over here, let me talk to you for a second? And you kind of learn that about your players. And he's just so good with the communication and again, the tone and the demeanor that I think there's a tremendous amount of respect for him. And listen, guys, I mean, it's hard to win one game. Like when you're doing what they're doing, it gets harder because the target gets bigger, right? And everybody's going to put their best foot forward. And it's human nature to start believing everybody when they're telling you how freaking good you are, right? They're patting you on the back and, oh, my goodness, a 14-game win streak and back-to-back USFL champions, and now you're playing for a UFL championship. It's easy to go on cruise control. And somehow he was able to manage that component of his team to have a very even keel throughout the season. When things went down, they didn't go down. If things went up, they didn't get caught in the clouds. Even keel across the way. That's why they have great sustained consistency as a football team.
All right, last one here as we wrap up the USFL conversation. Michigan, and Dopp, I got you here. I'll address this.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Plus 1,200 to start the season.
That's right.
Nobody expected them to be in the position that they were. And then they led the entire UFL with 7 all-UFL players. What is it that made this team so special to be able to make it to this point where nobody else believed that they could?
I think it's resiliency, and to be honest with you, I think it's coaching on the offensive side of the football. Marcel Belfay did a sensational job when he was dealt the hand that he was dealt. Guys, it's hard to find one good quarterback, right? They got to this point having to play 3 guys, one of which they signed off the street in Bryce Perkins, right? You had E.J. Perry, then you've got Danny Etling, and the things going in this carousel. And it's like teams don't survive that, right? So they're loaded on defense. They did a great job of identifying how were they going to accentuate the strengths of who was playing quarterback that week and try to mask and minimize the weaknesses. They could run the football effectively. But I did vote for Mike Nolan as coach of the year. And a lot of people say, well, how did you not vote for Coach Holtz at Birmingham? And it's for the very reason I just stated. I mean, you get into the playoffs having to play 3 quarterbacks in a 10-game season. And for the vast majority of those games, they didn't have their starter. And so I thought that was really impressive coaching job by them. And they just ran into a team that Birmingham team, man, they just never look at the scoreboard. They don't pay attention to the clock. They don't pay attention to what the score is. They just play.
That's the way that this Panthers team felt to me. There was, I think the word that I would use is grit, right? They're very gritty. They don't give up. It's that same thing that's in Michigan football in Detroit for those Lions, and you saw it with these Panthers. I love this. And again, we didn't even talk about Jake Bates because the UFL actually isn't a super big kicking league with the way that we do the extra points after touchdowns, right? But instead, we had Jake Bates become a huge story because of what we were able to see him do. Another guy on the Panthers that absolutely crushed it. Tom, we got more from you in just a minute, but we got more highlights we got to get to. Scooby.
Yeah, this is the game that just ended. The game that had us waiting to start the show. XFL Conference Championship. St. Louis Battlehawks hosting the San Antonio Brahmas for the 2nd week in a row. And they had the St. Louis Rams legend, Torrey Holt, out there to get the party started. And unfortunately for the Battlehawks, this play was drunk when the party was started. A little razzle-dazzle failed miserably. Fumble on the play, Dopp. They got to want that one back, right?
I'm not sure you can call it razzle-dazzle when it works out like that.
I know, right? Sometimes you get a little cute with the play call.
A little more fizzle-fazzle.
Just a little too much hot sauce there for McCarron. San Antonio takes over on downs. Moments later, the Brahmas, they're going to try to capitalize on the turnover. So Garbers, the guy who, was the starting quarterback, got hurt last week. He's back, and he hits Marquez Stevenson. We got a tutty. They go up 7-0 after the extra point. Nice little celebration dance there. Second quarter, same score, Brahmas ball. Garbage unleashes the hand cannon, and that's a tight window throw to Justin Smith. All by himself. Bye, Felicia. 63 yards to the crib. let's take another look, Dopp, here, because Garber said this was either going to be a really good play or a really bad one.
Wow. Threaded the needle with that one. Honestly, defense took a shot. When you take a shot, sometimes you get burned. That's what happened on this one.
They go up 13-0 after the field conversion. And then just before halftime, with the Battlehawks down 10, McCarron completes the short pass, but he would go down on the play and stay down. He'd be helped off the field and would tell the sideline reporter a little bit after halftime that he feels like doo-doo. Now, I'm going to let you figure out what doo-doo word he used. It's the other one, you know what I'm saying?
Sure, yes.
Yeah. But anyway, third quarter Brahmas ball. The guy this guy didn't play last week, but he's back.
It looks like he saved up all his energy from last week and just used it on this run. Anthony McFarland, baby.
69-yard touchdown. This guy's a big play waiting to happen. They're up 19-3 after the field conversion. So, I mean, Battlehawks are in trouble here. 4th and 5 from the 30. McCarron, at this point, he's like, I just got to throw it up to my guy because he's up there. Hakeem Butler getting down at the 5. You can't teach what, Dopp?
You can't teach size, Skubie.
No, you cannot. And Butler has all of that. 1st and goal for St. Louis. McCarron rolls out. Jake Sutherland, is he in?
Wait, that's not a... Yes, no, Skubie, he's in, right?
Let's take another look. The ref said no, but when you see it here, he is touchdown. It is 19-9 after the failed 2-point conversion. Next Brahmas possession. Garbers trying to get something going. Fumbles the keeper here, and it's scooped up by the Battlehawks. Listen, we got a ball game now. This kind of reminded me of the Birmingham game when they started having things going for them. You almost feel like the comeback is happening. The crowd is going insane, and that would make it a close game, just 19-15. 4th quarter, Brahmas leading 22-15, playing keep away, and McFarland takes the handoff, fights, runs out of bounds. This would set up the kick. St. Louis did miss a kick before this, which was huge to the game. Santoso preparing to kick it from 45 yards out, and it's good. That would make it 25-15. Brahmas would end up winning the game with some questionable decisions at the end. But nonetheless, we will talk about that. Wade Phillips brings a team that was plus 1,200 to win the championship right here in this situation. I mean, I want to talk about the things that St. Louis did. We're going to bring Tom back in. But first off, I want to talk about the Brahmas. I mean, being able to win this game and all the things that they had to go through, rotating quarterbacks, you have guys getting hurt. I mean, what impressed you about this team being able to run it back and beat St. Louis after losing to them last week?
So I think a couple of things come to mind. And first and foremost, I think A.J. Smith really grew up as a football coach this year. If you recall last year, he was with Wade at Houston, and they were rolling along earlier in the season. And John Trey Kirkland went down for the season. And when that happened, they were never the same. And I asked him, I said, if you look back on that moment, what should you have done? He goes, I should have just played our offense, coached our offense, and moved the pieces of the puzzle around the table. And instead, I panicked and thought I had to change the whole entire offense. And you heard Joel at Fox talk about it tonight, and Brock Hewitt as well. Every single time they saw St. Louis in a 2-deep high safety, they ran the ball. If it was single high safety, they threw the ball. I mean, this isn't rocket science here. And I think that from a week ago and going back to last year and, really identifying self-scouting, what tendency did I get into? What did I not take advantage of? How did I not get the ball into the hands of this player more? Or in this case of having to play a team on back-to-back weeks, how are they playing us? And when they played us this certain way, did I take advantage of it? And I thought tonight he was dialing up all of the things that needed to be dialed up at the right time. They protected the quarterback well. They had a couple of bounces go their way. That's fine. But I'll tell you this, guys. When number 41's on the field, he's moving at a different speed than everybody else. If he would have been healthy the whole year, I would have voted him as the all UFL running back, and I think everybody else would have too.
Yeah, I am totally with you on that, Tom. You look at the offensive weapons for this team. Jontre Kirkland was fantastic. Marquez Stevenson, and then you mentioned it, right? Anthony McFarland. This team had over 200 yards rushing in this game to be able to help lead them to the championship game. If McFarland was able to be here and be healthy all season, do you think this would have been a different Brahmas team than what we saw?
I think that they would have been probably had some more points, per game. And I say that because every time we've seen Anthony McFarland on the field, he's ripping off a 40-yard run or a 69-yard run like he had tonight. Or he's catching a ball in the backfield 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and turning it into a 29-yard gain. So what happens is those things start to accumulate, right? And they accumulate in two positive ways. Number one, field position, because you're already a great defensive football team. And number two, points, right? Just more points. When the ball's in his hands, you have a chance to flip field position and score points. And they're a handful. And listen, when San Antonio beat Birmingham, he had come off of an injury. He didn't play the week before, just like this last week, coming into this week. And he gave Birmingham all kinds of problems when they played on the road. So that's going to be a fun matchup to watch again next week.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not going to be excited to see him again. Now, here's what I really want to talk about, because I brought it up at the beginning, getting to talk about St. Louis's final drive. And I'd love to know what the chat is thinking as well. I mean, you're down 10 points and you're driving. You're in the red zone. We know that there's a 4th and 12 in spring football. And we've seen this in the NFL before, where coaches kick the field goal knowing that they don't have that much time. So we can go for the onside kick. But the 4th and 12, there's a higher possibility of you getting the ball back. So what are your feelings on the handling of that last drive? Do you think they should have kicked it? Did you like the way Anthony Beck handled it? I'm not asking you to get in his head and tell us what he was thinking. Right. But to me, as a fan, I'm really confused as to how he handled that, because they still had a chance.
I can already tell what he's thinking by the look of him shaking Wade Phillips' hand. That was a let me shake your hand. How did we screw up that last 50 seconds and walk away? So, listen, I know coaches, their natural inclination is to avoid kicking a field goal on first down, avoid kicking a field goal on third down, or what have you. This was a very rare instance, I thought, tonight that wasn't handled well. And it probably wasn't handled well because it was fairly rare. I felt like once that clock started to get close to 30 seconds and they were not advancing the football, they should have kicked the field goal, because it's not just the 4th and 12, which is a time down. You still have to have enough time to actually get the ball into the end zone, because they would have required a touchdown, not a field goal. And remember, that is a 4th and 12 on your own 28. So when you get the ball, you're not necessarily in plus territory. So you do need time there. And then once they got past that point of no return, where they're in now, they got no choice. To not take any shots to the end zone was mind-boggling to me. Yeah. In fact, they weren't even close, except for the one with 5 seconds left. And by that time, it didn't matter. So for a football team that is so well coached and has been so well managed over the last 2 years by Anthony Beck and his staff, I think all of us that were watching who realized that were really surprised that they played that way. And listen, you got to give San Antonio credit too. I mean, San Antonio is only allowing the opposition to convert 32% of their third downs. I mean, that's the tops in the league. It's a fantastic number. Heading into the fourth quarter, St. Louis is 0-6 on third down. So there's plenty of blame to go around with St. Louis not playing their best football long before it got into the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, unfortunately, it felt like the last two games, right? It was a very tough time for AJ McCarron and these Battlehawks to struggle when they needed it, Tom. Part of that could be the injury. We all know. It's very obvious that AJ is dealing with some stuff. And I don't want to get too in our heads here, but we just watch a coach decide he's going to pull Adrian Martinez in favor of a backup. Without getting too deep into it, is there any thought, Tom, where you were like, you know what? given the way that AJ is playing, it might not be a bad idea for them to put Manny Wilkins out there just for a spark. How would you have approached that had you been the Battlehawks coach?
Well, I think that you have to weigh, is an 80% AJ McCarron a better chance than 100% Manny Wilkins, right? And if you feel like he's got the physical and mental toughness, he's not an overly mobile guy anyway. So it's not as if you were a team like an Adrian Martinez at Birmingham that said, hey, we're going to count on this guy to run. And then all of a sudden that's eliminated. So that you didn't have to worry about. I think the bigger problem wasn't whether A.J. McCarron was healthy enough. The bigger problem was San Antonio was so far superior up front, and their game plan by their defensive coordinator, Will Reed, was fantastic. And Joel touched on it in the broadcast. And sometimes when you hear, okay, there's one-on-ones out there, it doesn't always mean the wide receiver versus the DB. What San Antonio was doing is they were saying, we are better than you. So we're going to cover up every one of your offensive line, and then we're going to bring one extra. You can't double anybody. You can't help anybody out. And our defensive tackle or our defensive end or our edge outside linebacker is going to beat your guy one-on-one. So it might not have mattered who was playing quarterback for St. Louis.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Very tough one with the way they were bringing the defense. Tom, I want to ask you this. We saw a lot of guys that were fantastic so far this year, just in the UFL in general, not just in these two games. One of those guys, Hakeem Butler. Offensive Player of the Year, made the All-UFL team. There were actually a bunch of Battlehawks. I want to ask you, when you look at this, not just these 4 playoff teams we looked at, but the All-UFL teams in general that we've seen on offense, we've seen a bunch of guys that came out and played really well this year. Was there anybody that stood out to you that felt like they were really deserving of making the All-UFL offensive team?
I thought, and I know they were not a good football team, I thought Dawood Davis was a stud. And had he not had that injury he had in training camp with the Dolphins, it was a real serious head injury, I think he might be on an active roster. I think he is really, really good. Like I told you before, had Anthony McFarland been healthy, I would have expected him to be on it because I just think he would have had a monster year on the ground and through the air. And the only other real beef I had, guys, because it was such a good tight end year, I was a little bit surprised when you look at Jace Sternberger, right, and Sal Cannella. So Sal statistically has a better year, but he's on a poor team. But when you look at Jace Sternberger, his average yards per reception was so large that every single time he touched the ball, it was an explosive play.
Right.
So I could see it. There was Cody Latimer in there. Yeah. You had, heck, the other 2 tight ends at Birmingham are a handful. You got Jordan Thomas and Marcus Baugh. So I thought that the only other guy on the defensive side that I was really surprised didn't make that list was Fisher at DC. Malik Fisher at DC was he's a warlock over there, man. He's constantly creating havoc. But I for the most part, I agree with what took place here. I thought DeAndre Baker, and still think DeAndre Baker should be on an NFL roster. Breland Speaks, his play, spoke for itself, as did Carlos Davis. To be honest with you, the reason why both of these teams are playing against each other in Birmingham and San Antonio next week is because of their defensive fronts. Yeah. Their defensive fronts and their offensive fronts are better than everybody else's in the league.
Isn't that football? Every single time we say the game is always won in the trenches.
That's right.
At every level.
Even in spring football.
At every level. Yeah. I could throw a rock outside my house right now and hit a wide receiver. They're standing on every street corner. But I cannot find a pass rusher, guys. I can't find one. They're not out there.
That's fair.
That is awesome.
Well, there were a bunch of people that were really deserving this year. Kai Nakua, Jake Bates, a bunch of guys that we talked about to make the All-UFL team. Marquette King also. Got to give the punters some love.
How about the other kickers, though?
Andrew Schmidt was fantastic.
There's like 5 guys that were legit dudes.
McCrane?
Yep. And we never even got to see destroying at the very beginning of the season the guy that everyone was most excited about. So, lot to be thankful for there with this season. All right. I'll tell you what. Let's head on over to Chad.
Okay.
Let's find out where Chad is at after these 2 huge games. I want to know, what are they thinking? Who do they want in the championship?
We asked the chat, which team are you picking to win the UFL Championship? Although the comments are flooded with Brahmas stuff, everybody's horns down, this, that, Brahmas are going to win. 4th straight game in the Battle Dome. 56% are choosing the Stallions. Tom, tell us who you got in the championship.
Oh, my goodness. I got to be honest with you. Sometimes when everything starts happening at the right time in the right moment, and that moment is right now, and you're playing your best football, right now that team's San Antonio.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I wish I put the plus 1,200 down.
Yeah.
it is, and you know what? And does that mean that they're going to win? I don't know, but I did have a chance to see both teams recently. And again, it's so hard to sustain what Birmingham's been doing. You almost feel like, man, how much gas do they got left in the tank, right? Like, how can they just do it one more time? Where you look at San Antonio and you're like, these guys like are hungry. They're ready to go. Like this is a team that can smell that championship trophy, you know. And so to be honest with you, who I feel the worst for is the St. Louis fan base.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, home game.
You couldn't ask for a better place in the championship game. And the league was lights out this year, and the football was great. But I feel bad for those folks because those fans are fantastic.
Tom, real quick. Unfortunately, we've waited 11 weeks to have you on. You've been a blast all night. You've even hung out longer than we expected, but we're as inclusive of a show as it gets. So I'm always interacting with YouTube fans. There's one guy who's been keeping receipts on Skubie since week 2. Scubie's told the chat that the Stallions are suspect. He doesn't have belief in them. This guy, whose name is Whodat Chris, says, tell Skubie we want to see him with his shirt off when we win in St. Louis.
Yes!
That's what I got to feel about Tom.
You know what?
Trolls.
So that whole shirt off thing started when in Birmingham against Houston in a game that I had. And it was the most random, out of control thing. There's nobody sitting in that end zone the entire game. All of a sudden, the fourth quarter starts, and these guys start trickling over. All right, then another guy starts trickling over. Next thing you know, and they all got their shirts on. Within 15 minutes of real time, not on the clock, obviously, there's 60 people over there, and they all got their shirts off, and they're having a great time. So I proposed to the DC fan base last week that if you're going to do the beer snake, you do the beer snake shirtless.
Wow.
I mean, if you really want to one-up those guys in Birmingham.
This is an origin
You've already
story.
got the beer snake. Yes. So just take your shirts off and do the beer snake.
You know what?
I had no idea.
Take you up on that. If your team wins, let's go. Brahmas in 4.
Love it. Love it. I love that we just got an origin of the beer snake and how everything just happened from this. Tom, you're incredible. You know it. Man. We know it. Thank you so much for joining us on UFL Today tonight. We appreciate you so much. And for Skubie and for Joe, my name is Daniel. We are not done yet. We got one more show next week, a championship coming to you. We love you guys, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you next week for a huge one. Brahmas and Stallions. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. You deserve it. We'll see you in one more week. See you guys.